is at 63. Please. So good morning, Mrs. Hickton and Dundas, and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Morena, good morning everyone, and thanks very much for the opportunity of presenting to you again this morning. Effectively, we're here to talk about the first quarter of this year and give you an update of what we've been up to and some of the events and activities that have been operating, which Annie will do for you. And at the end of that, I just want to briefly go over another issue which I think is important for people to understand about a bit of the background to how Hawke's Bay Tourism operates. So we'll be brief and to the point, but we thank you again for the opportunity of doing the presentation. Annie.
Kia ora, nice to be back, to see you all. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Goodness me, you'd think one would learn. So just in terms of what I'll run through today is just a little bit of the state of the nation in terms of our visitor numbers, and we're focusing, as George said, first quarter of this calendar year, but it's our third quarter in terms of our financial year. And then a little bit about the year ahead, but we really are focusing on the last 3 months of activity. Again, just to reiterate, you know, the main reason why we're here, it's obviously visitor numbers, but ultimately it's expenditure in Hawke's Bay and money being spent and in all parts of the region. And this just highlights where we sit at a national level in terms of visitor spend. The green bar is total money spent in Hawke's Bay year in March 2014. The pink is international and the blue is domestic. A little bit hard for George because he suffers from a bit of colour blindness, but best to know that Hawke's Bay is actually performing exceptionally well with total spend at 550 million year in March, and this is taken from the BNZ data. I think the interesting thing here is when we look at other regions, and you look at a region like Rotorua, which is predominantly tourism focused, you can see that their international numbers are higher, but actually we earn more money from domestic visitors in Hawke's Bay. So there's some nice things we can draw from that. Obviously it's a sample, but this is data that we are tending to rely a little more on, as some of our accommodation data is a little bit... Auckland's not in there just because they're off the charts, but that's the only one that's missing. Just in terms of the first 2 months, which we have data for, we've had an absolute stellar January and February for Hawke's Bay. You know, for the month of January we're up 5.8%, and for the month of February up 4.2%. We were quite concerned about February with the postponement of the mission, but with things like Cricket World Cup and other events that we're on, we feel that that has obviously helped quell that a little bit, and we've run a bit of work, which I'll go through in a minute, as to, you know, to fill that the month of Feb. But we're pretty thrilled with that result. Commercial was up just as much as private, so it's a pretty good result. So year in February, just under 4 million nights spent, so 3.8, and it's an extra 100,000 nights, 104,000 nights spent in Hawke's Bay over that 12-month period. So it's a pretty good result. For March, and we haven't got the data in yet in terms of arrivals, but the feedback was from the industry that March was actually probably the better month of all three. We had a number of major events on over that period, and one particularly to highlight, you know, I'm not going to highlight the cricket because the Hockey Masters tournament actually probably delivered more visitors to Hawke's Bay than the Cricket World Cup. There were 68 teams of 11 plus, and they were here for 9 nights. So the impact of that one tournament, not a particularly sexy tournament, it's a Masters hockey tournament, but they filled every cafe and restaurant and motel and hotel from Napier right the way through to Havelock and Hastings. So it just shows you that one event of that nature can actually be hugely, hugely beneficial in a month of March. So visitor feedback's been really strong. Horse of the Year have recorded pretty strong numbers this year and ran a successful event. So March is increasingly has been bolstered as a sort of end of that summer season as a really key month from an arrivals point of view, so very important. Next year it'll be interesting because Easter falls in March, so it'll be another strong month. Just in terms of some of the activity that's been running, we have a heavy advertising schedule through this third quarter. We obviously were part of the Art Deco major event funding, and so we were focused heavily on that, and that was really about the international piece as well as domestic. And Art Deco was another roaring success. We did run 5 Fab February weekends, which was our answer to bolstering February in relation to the postponement of the mission. So it was a campaign based around every month in February and what was on around events and other activities, and that we think's gone particularly well. And we obviously started the work to promote the Big Easy, both the main event in Napier Hastings, and then we introduced the Big Easy warm-up ride, which has been affectionately named the Little Easy in Central Hawke's Bay, and that was a great success too. So we'll touch on that a little bit, but that's been fun to introduce something a little different there. So the outcome of that, we've seen a 20% lift in traffic to our website, which takes us to around the 300,000 visitors to the site per annum. We're up at over 40,000 Facebook likes. And what I would say with Facebook, for those who glaze over, the reach of that 40,000 is about 4 million people per annum. So Facebook's changed dramatically from being a sort of silly social to a very, very serious player from a media point of view. And we do spend a lot of effort and time on targeting people through Facebook because it's a fantastic way to reach people quickly and get great engagement and interaction. The Big Easy, we have, as part of that, we were running digital video, and so that's been widely kind of viewed around the country by 30,000 plus people. So a range of different activity, obviously talking to different audiences through that third quarter. Art Deco Weekend, just to touch on this was the last year of the funding from major events, and so we will have not that we'll not promote Deco next year, but we won't have the funding to do some of the things we've done, which has been around that international focus. We hosted 14 international media this year with Air New Zealand and the Art Deco Trust, and that was hugely successful. We had a very large ambassador program, and overall that event just gains in strength to strength, and the coverage it receives globally is pretty impressive. So it's one of those events that we must maintain and keep at the top of our events list. We also, as part of the Cricket World Cup, and dwelling on that, we always felt that we had a hard task with teams that perhaps didn't have large fan bases following them, and so Afghanistan's not one of our major visitor markets, and neither is Pakistan. So we decided that we needed to create something a little bit different, and it wasn't really our intention to be putting on an event, but we actually ran this event to gain international media exposure and coverage. And I guess the result was we got exactly that. So this event was covered by Channel 9 in Australia, by Worldwide Sport. Tourism New Zealand came and filmed it. It's gone out to their 1.7 million Facebook fans and been viewed over 105,000 times. There's a whole lot of coverage that has come off the back of that cricket match, which was held at the Clifton County Cricket Club. For those who know that venue, it's an absolute piece of Hawke's Bay paradise, and we used it as an event to showcase the region, via television, and using the cricket and Art Deco as two key themes, and so on. So we had about 2,500 people at that game. From the general public to visitors to corporates to all sorts, and it really was quite a special day for those who managed to get out there. But that was our kind of answer to the Cricket World Cup, so we're pretty pleased with the result around that. We did also run a whole lot of activations around Cricket World Cup. The cricket ball trail to Maclean Park, we had giant wickets and balls and black cap signings and all sorts of things as part of our work with Cricket World Cup and Cricket New Zealand, and a lot of this activity was funded by them directly, so we received a grant to do that. We just had to obviously pull it together, so that wasn't out of our budget, but not hugely, I would say, picked up by the locals, but the Afghanistan supporters was certainly probably the most lively session on the way to the park on the Sunday. So it was an interesting exercise, but one we've taken some quite key learnings from in terms of how the region hosts for a major event. So in terms of us, the trade period for this last quarter is quite quiet because the industry is busy, But just the things we've been working on, we go now into a very, very heavy what we call travel trade period. So this is when we get out and about and talk to the travel industry internationally and around New Zealand about what we're doing. A number of business event shows, so Convene we've just had, and meetings is coming up. But our big push is trends. So for those of you who are not sort of versed in the tourism space, Trends is the largest conference in New Zealand for tourism. It brings in 350 buyers from around the world, and this year Hawke's Bay is a joint host of that conference. There's about 1,000 delegates. It's in Rotorua in May, and it's really our chance to put ourselves front and centre of, in front of 350 buyers from around the world. We have a number who come into Hawke's Bay before that and after that to see the product firsthand. But this is a really, really important event for us on the annual calendar. So we've spent quite a lot of time. We've got 5 other operators coming with us to showcase the region, including the Art Deco Trust, the Crown Hotel, Odyssey, New Zealand Wine Touring Company, and Napier Tourism Services. So we've got good representation, but a really, really important event on the horizon. The other piece of our puzzle are our trade for mills, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, but that's a really important way to get Hawke's Bay in front of travel agents who haven't got a clue about kind of what we are, where we are, and how we're sort of situated. The Big Easy's obviously just happened, but it wasn't in Q3. And just to quickly talk about that event, and the reason why we established that event was to maximise really the investment that the Regional Council and other councils have put into the development of the trails, in Rotary obviously, and that event now is really gaining some traction. We had about 1,500 riders this year on a 27-degree day, and the feedback we get from that event is just extraordinary. We had about 33% were from out of town, and those are people now who are here staying for Easter and staying for 3 nights. So it was always about establishing an event at Easter and utilising the fantastic infrastructure that we have on the trails. I encourage those of you to get out and do it. We do have a few councillors that emerge on that trail, but it really is a fun Hawke's Bay day. It's nothing serious. There's not a lot of lycra. It's fairly good fun and finishes with a concert. But the overall feedback we get from participants is exceptionally good. We did introduce the now called the Little Easy in CHB, which had about 200 to 300 riders, and that was a great way for them to be part of it. That was on Good Friday, so people coming up from Manawatu and Wanganui were stopping, doing the Central Hawke's Bay ride, and then coming through for Saturday to do the other ride. So that event in itself will grow and be a great little addition to CHB's event portfolio. Winter Fork, we've started to promote, and as of this morning we've sold 1,000 tickets and done 90 grand in revenue, so we're fairly pleased about that. It only opened for ticket sales on Thursday, so that I guess shows you that people shouldn't shy away from June. It's a great chance to get out and eat and dine and support our restaurant industry and our wineries, etc. in the quieter winter months. So really pleased with that, and obviously we're working fairly closely with the Napier City Council on the Melbourne Storm coming at the end of July. So that's a great injection of people. They've sold a lot of tickets already, and we're pleased that obviously that's end of July and another good reason to visit Hawke's Bay. So, tourism in Hawke's Bay will contribute over $1 billion per annum by 2025. This is obviously part of our long-term plan and submission process, and we have been working pretty actively in the last wee while to talk to the industry and many of our stakeholders around our plan for the future of tourism. It's gone very well. All councils have been briefed on where we're at, and we've had great endorsement from Wairoa right the way through to CHB. So we're really happy with where that's at, and we've obviously got another month of work to do on educating more and more people about the benefit of tourism and growth for Hawke's Bay. Some other projects that we really will take our time and focus for the probably July onwards, but we have talked about this before, but this idea of one consumer website for visitors, and this is critical for the web. Would be silly if we didn't think that this was going to be our major channel for information provision and helping and enabling visitors to book and enjoy their holiday and spend more money. So that we're working on a project around that with Napier and Hastings at this point, and Central Hawke's Bay has been involved as well, and that is about removing the 12 or hopefully 12, 13 websites we have and really trying to have one visitor website for Hawke's Bay. So we lose the confusion for visitors who find themselves on goodness knows where, and we direct them to one site. It's a long process, but we do believe that this needs to be the gateway, the portal for all information around visitors coming to Hawke's Bay. Big project, but one that's going to be our major priority next year. The regional event strategy, we talk about this a lot, but there's been some changes in Napier, and that's a good positive start for us in terms of reenacting that strategy to really look at events in our off-season. You know, the events that we have, I guess, started have been about creating opportunities to get visitors to come here, and they are a long-term plan to play to our strengths and but really let others get on and manage many of the events that this region runs. But that strategy needs to be kind of kicked back into action, and it will. And then obviously our full seasonal campaign approach, which we've talked to you about before and we've showed you some of the creative, but that really will be our focus from July onwards, and we've sort of loosely, quietly started some of that activity already. So that's kind of where we're at. So before I hand to George, are there any questions?
There will be a few. Councillor Hewitt had a question.
Thanks, Annie.
there.
Nice to see you, and George again. I've had a little bit of feedback from the Central Hawke's Bay Big Easy, and just a plug here, I've had some disappointment expressed that while the event was great, it was on a public holiday, so our local townspeople who are desperate for some local spend didn't have the opportunity to maximise that event. So I'm wondering if you may consider giving some thought to that going forward. The comment was made to me, look, our rates are going into this $850,000 too, and please can we have something coming back that enables the wider community to benefit. So good initiative, but maybe think of, the request was one of not those 361 days, but not one of the 4 public holidays. You want to reply? Because I was also going to ask, how are we going with Central Hawke's Bay? I think we've lost our lady down there, have we?
Oh, she's just on maternity leave, so she'll be back. But no, we've got a great wee plan for CHB, and the Big Easy event was kind of a Little Easy was the start. We're working on a concept around spring, which Central Hawke's Bay will be the central core of. So we've got a session, we're going down to talk to the industry next week about that. And there's another couple of events that they want to do. So yeah, no, things are definitely happening. We're just, and then Trudy will be back in a few months' time and get back into it.
Could you just explain that for me? Because I find that I don't really understand what the problem is there.
Good Friday. Good Friday being a public holiday, so the local businesses weren't allowed to be open. Right. For any visitor spend to be happening locally. Okay. We've got a dying little township waiting for a dam.
Yeah. Because, of course, a holiday would encourage people to actually come.
That's the hard thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think perhaps opening is the answer. Yeah, okay.
Order, everyone. No, Councillor Scott, then I'll come round to Mr. Moy. Councillor Scott.
Thank you for that coverage of the events. It looks a thriving place, and great to see the cricket legends actually manage worldwide publicity. An exciting event. But I really want to pick up on what you said about the Hockey Masters and the fact that that was bigger than the Cricket World Cup. I know we're only up to the end of March, and that the Hockey Festival only took place in April, but I wonder if you are aware of the comparison between an event like the Hockey Masters with the Festival of Hockey as far as drawing in visitors and spend.
I mean, the Festival of Hockey is a fantastic initiative that's only in year 2. I think, you know, we can't, I think that'd be hard to compare when you've got 68 teams of 11 versus we've got, obviously the Festival of Hockey's got the main international tournament, but there are a number of other tournaments that run around that. And the long-term growth of that event is quite substantial, with bringing teams and school teams in from other countries and more New Zealand teams. So I don't think they're comparable just yet. But having been to the Festival of Hockey and seen the quality of the play, that tournament's only going to grow, and it really needs Hawke's Bay people to get out and support it. you know, it's a fantastic venue, and yet we had the Black Sticks playing Australia, and you know, unless Hawke's Bay gets out and supports these sorts of events, we probably won't have them. So I just, you know, it's the other element of that tournament though is the broadcast potential, and you know, India and other markets are huge hockey fans, and if broadcast rights can be secured in the future, then that element of the tournament is exceptionally important. But I mean, I saw some of the councillors there. I mean, it's an amazing event, but it just needs more local support to go and make it happen.
The Masters, do they bring, I mean, number of teams, do they bring supporters in with them?
Yep, they do. And wives and, you know, partners and that sort of thing. So it kept the accommodation sector very happy for a good 10 days early March. So it was very, very good.
Mr. Mohi.
Yes, yeah, congratulations. That's a great summary of events. But I'd just like to take umbrage at your comment about the Masters, having been to many myself. And I can assure you that they are very sexy events.
Thank you.
And when you get older, you'll find out. With the Melbourne Storm, if there's any way that you can piggyback, there will be a huge marae welcome for Harris. Yep. Tohu Harris there, and you know, if you can get some photos of that sort of thing, that they will have you know, haka parties, and it'll be really worth promoting from that point of view when he comes, because he's a, you know, local hero there in Hastings.
He's on our list.